Well, this begins the college football taint tickler, where we discuss what the hell's gotten into USC. I am reading that, I about said Lane Kiffin, Lincoln Riley has now the number one recruiting class for 2026. Is that right? Just past Oregon. Oregon's number 2 on this list I'm looking at, Sports Illustrated.
I was not aware of that. I knew that they were having a little bit of a run right now. I didn't know that they'd passed Oregon, but yeah, I guess they're doing it.
2026. So this is a ways off. There's not
This is next year's class.
Right, not a ton of commits, but so Notre Dame was expected to get a defensive lineman whose name I'm not going to try to pronounce. 5-star kid. His high school teammate had played at Notre Dame or was playing for Notre Dame or committed to Notre Dame, and yet USC still signed him. And then the quarterback, I guess you are going to know better than I am.
Jonas Williams?
Yes. So who is Jonas Williams and who is Jared Curtis? Both quarterbacks.
Yes. So Jonas Williams was committed to the Ducks. He flipped to USC.
Yeah, there's another one. 5-star kid, right?
Yeah, depending 4 or 5, depending on where you look. But yes, very much one of the top quarterbacks in that class, whether connected or not. And maybe we'll talk about this tonight on Recruiting with Andrew Nemec. But Jared Curtis is the nation's top quarterback for that 2026 class, and I believe that he is down to Oregon and Georgia for his top 2. So maybe it's a writing on the wall thing where Jonas Williams thought, well, if Jared Curtis is coming here, I should go somewhere else, or maybe those two things aren't related at all.
Yeah, hard to know, but somewhere along the way, USC seems to have gotten their house in order when it comes to recruiting.
And things were ugly for a while there. They were. I mean, even just this last transfer portal cycle, they were losing a whole lot more than they gained.
Yeah, maybe they got their NIL crap all sorted. I don't know, but Sports Illustrated has them the number 1 class 2026, with Oregon number 2. Yeah, this Curtis guy. Georgia, isn't it funny how Oregon? Do you have to pinch yourself that Oregon is like in it?
Yes.
For all, it's always like Oregon, Georgia, Oregon, Ohio State, Oregon, Texas. Like, it's unbelievable.
I mean, when I was in college 20 years ago, I worked as a recruiting intern for Oregon football, and to get a visit from a kid anywhere off of the West Coast was like, oh my God. Like, I can't believe that this kid who's from either Texas or Florida or wherever is actually going to give us a look. And now they're neck and neck with those schools, with the Blue Bloods, with the other favorites. And you're like, the kid they landed yesterday, the safeties, is from Melbourne, Florida. I mean, they have pipelines all over now, and it's an indication of growth of the program, because that used to be so far out of the realm of normalcy, and now it's just old hat.
Yeah, it's just you don't, and you get them too. Like I remember back in the
day, they're not just competing for them; they're landing them.
Yeah, back in the day, it would be a huge story if Oregon was in a final 2 or 3 with some of the big boys, and then you would just be like, well, it would just be
if they were one of the hats on the table for signing day.
And it would be a miracle if they got them.
Right.
You got one every once in a while. But now it's just, you're right, it's old hat. It's crazy. So right now, Sports Illustrated lists USC 1, Oregon 2, Texas A&M is 3, followed by Penn State and Kansas. Hell yeah. Ooh, no 5 stars, though. Maybe that's just because we already have 12 commits. I'm a part of the program.
Naturally.
They send me... they want my money. Mm-hmm. They want me to donate to the program for the NIL fund.
They want that big radio money.
They do. But anyway, I do like, the one thing I do like, well, two things. One, if USC really is recruiting well, I have always rooted, and I don't mean root for the team USC, I could care less, but I think it is better for college football. I always said it was way better for the Pac-12, and I'm going to say the same thing about the Big Ten now that they're in the Big Ten. It is better for the Big Ten when USC is at the top of the league.
It's better when your brands are relevant.
And they're your
big brands are relevant.
They're just a great villain. They're a little bit like the Lakers in that way.
Yeah.
That when they're down, something's missing. So I've always wanted USC to get their act together. Something's in the water down there. They never seem to be able to do it. But hopefully, they're recruiting well, and it continues. And can you imagine the top of the Big Ten with USC, Oregon, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State. I mean, that's awesome stuff. Particularly if they're able to finally figure out the scheduling and the formatting, and so they all play each other. We get to see those matchups. At any rate, the other thing I like is I love that Dan Lanning, even though Oregon is known as one of the best transfer schools, and they've done a great job in the transfer portal, I do love that Lanning is still kicking ass at the high school level too.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing is I think when you look at these composite ratings, and I know there are 4 or 5 different services that like compete for all of these different ratings, whether it's On3, 24/7, Sports Illustrated, all of those. The most recent one I saw that was a composite of both transfer and incoming high school. The Ducks had the best combined of those two.
Yeah, and that's huge because I do think that if you're not really paying attention, you could maybe fall into the trap of thinking that Oregon is just doing the quick fix transfer thing.
You need the transfers, but that can't be the identity of your program. You got to build and you got to grow guys.
And they kind of are doing the quick fix transfer thing because I think Dan
for
Lanning,
certain spots, absolutely.
Well, he brought in just a different level of recruiting. And so, I mean, my God, he was at Georgia. He was the defensive coordinator on the best team ever,
yeah,
potentially.
At least the best. They had 5 or 6 players drafted in the first round or something like that.
Insane. And so he brought that to Oregon, but that takes time. So I think it just bodes really well that in the meantime, while he's building it with the foundational pillars of really good high school kids that they can develop, in the meantime, they're still the number 1 seed in the college football playoff tournament with some high school recruits, but also with a bunch of transfers. I think that bodes really, really well for Oregon's future because they do need. You can't just go, Deion Sanders, who basically does not make in-home visits at all for high school kids. He just doesn't. It's weird.
He doesn't grind like that.
So you're an Oregon fan. You got to feel good. But I'm telling you, you want USC back. I just think it would be great if USC and Oregon had a nice rekindled rivalry, Pete Carroll, Chip Kelly style in the Big Ten.